One last thing I want to talk about, and I'm going to read an excerpt for you, is I tend to take a lot of time in describing fight scenes, especially. In particular, I like to describe the action of a gun. And I just find this fascinating to me. And I've been in law enforcement for the better part of my adult life, and just happen to love handguns. And so I like to take a situation when you fire a gun, and if you're in a close range to your target, you're inside a room and you're maybe 8 or 10 feet away from that particular target. The action of pulling the trigger and sending that bullet down range, it takes less than a second. But I like to take paragraphs to describe what happened. I like to talk about the recoil, the muzzle flash, the bullet traveling through the barrel of the gun, spitting because of the rifling inside the gun, traveling out at 1,200 feet per second, how it approaches the target, how it enters and how it exits, or how it may happen to tumble around inside a person's body. So what takes place in the real world in less than a second, I'll take a few minutes to describe. I like to do that because I think it builds anticipation in the reader. It pulls you into a scene and forces you to sit and wait until you find out what happened at the end of that one half second process of pulling a trigger and sending a bullet down range. Now, the scene that I'm going to read to you, it takes place in Childfinder Resurrection, the second story. And one thing you have to know about my protagonist is that he is a psychic. He's got the ability to find missing children, hence the name Childfinder. And he's, in the second book, has really refined his telepathic capabilities. Earlier in the story, one of the main characters, named Dr. Woody Davis, is an African-American psychiatrist, was shot by the villain in this particular case. Yes, that's the guy who escaped from the forest, and the guy who wasn't in the bathroom when Pat O'Donnell fired his weapon there. He manages to track down one of Pat O'Donnell's team members, Dr. Davis, and shoot him. Now Pat's searching for clues, and he doesn't know how to get any clues, and he's really despondent over the injuries to his good friend Dr. Davis. So he gets this idea. He says, you know, maybe I can slip into a psychic state and go into the mind of Dr. Davis when he was shot, and maybe I could find some clues if I can get inside his head and inside his memory. So he does that. And here's the scene, and you'll see, because I sort of like do a repeat of the scene, but from the perspective of the protagonist rather than the Dr. Davis. This is Patrick O'Donnell's thoughts. He closed his eyes and held his head in his hands, with his elbows resting on the light brown desk blotter. First, there were quick feelings of being startled, then anger, and then a sense of violation. They all filled his mind like a syrupy mix, oozing in and around his brain cells until the transformation to Woody's thoughts became complete. He looked down at his hands on top of the desk and saw his skin color had changed. The fair-skinned, Irish-American Patrick O'Donnell was mentally inside the memory of the African-American Dr. Davis, and his hands were now old, brown, and wrinkled. He looked up and saw the killer standing there, his semi-automatic Sig Sauer with silencer in hand, demanding to know how Woody knew about him. It was now abundantly clear to Pat that the killer thought Dr. Davis was the psychic, and that Woody never gave him up, though he never really needed proof. He never doubted that for even a moment. He saw his right hand reach for the telephone, and he felt the searing pain in his left shoulder when he grabbed the receiver off the hook and hit the number 9 button. He had never been shot in real life, but for the first time, through Dr. Davis, he experienced the sharp, burning pain, and he felt his left arm go numb. He witnessed his right hand try once again to hit a number button, only to be greeted by the soft blow-dart sound of yet another round from the killer's gun. It tore through his right arm with incredible force and unbearable pain. He saw his hands shake, blood all over them and his shirt, as he made one last attempt to complete the 911 call. He stared right in the killer's cold green eyes and saw the sneer on his sick face as the final round was delivered, a perfect trajectory with barely any attempt at aiming. The killer sent the bullet silently through the barrel to Woody's head. Something took paralyzing control of Pat at this moment in the memory. He could almost see the bullet roaring toward his head in slow motion, helplessly watching it inch closer and closer. But suddenly, he felt the strange force of another body slam into him from the left side, almost knocking him from the chair. It was as if he had been standing on a busy street, and an invisible Good Samaritan rushed to tackle him away from the path of a speeding bus. The force dislodged him from Dr. Davis's memory, but not from the scene. He now found himself standing in the doorway, looking at Woody, but back inside his own mind once again. He knew deep down that if he waited a moment longer, and if this mysterious interloper had not shoved him out of the way, the bullet that entered Dr. Davis's skull would have ended the memory and prevented him from seeing what happened next. Worst case, it would have killed him. He also found it odd that the killer did not seem to be aware of his presence in the room once outside of Woody's memory. It proved to be a freebie at the moment, an opportunity, perhaps, because he had been a stowaway in Woody's mind and the killer simply didn't realize he was even there. Well, I hope that puts into some perspective at least how I use violence when I write my mystery thrillers in the Childfinder trilogy series. Again, my rule of thumb, use violence judiciously, use it cautiously, but when you need to use it effectively. And if it means drawing out a scene that really should take about a nanosecond to occur and spending several paragraphs to describe it, you can help build that anticipation. You can make your protagonist a more likable person, someone the reader really connects with, and you can make your bad guys, your antagonists, your villains, your nemesis to be evil and downright despicable, which is an effect that, of course, you want with your readers. Thanks very much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the seminar.